Welcome, y'all. Good morning. I am Audrey Gale Hall, pronouns she or they. I am the membership coordinator at Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church here in Houston, Texas. Our beloved community of faith, reason, and affection welcomes all to grow in mind and spirit as together we build a better world. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, we extend a special welcome and invite you to fill out our online visitor card so you can receive more information about Emerson and our activities. And you can find that in the chat. You're also totally welcome to email me directly at audrey@emersonhouston.org or to reach out to me in the direct messages here in the Zoom call by clicking on my name once I type in the chat in a second. Again, welcome to all. We are a church in many places, and due to the Omicron surge today, we're coming to you from our homes and offices, connecting digitally to reduce our community's COVID risks. At the same time, some of the congregation is tuning in from our sanctuary, masked and distanced, but watching the service together. You will notice that we've muted you. This helps all of us to hear the service better. And we encourage you, like I said, to use the chat box as much as you like. Following the worship service, we'll have social time, which is a chance for you to gather in smaller groups to discuss the service and what's going on in our lives. We also have a pulpit guest today, Micah LaGrave. Micah LaGrave graduated from Andover Newton Theological School with an MDiv in 2010. He's been trained as a chaplain and will pursue hospice chaplaincy once ordained. Currently, he is in ministerial school at the Unity Urban Ministerial School and is a candidate for ordination with Unity Worldwide Ministries. He is a member of Unity of Houston. As a trans man, Micah is interested in the intersection between social justice and spirituality. He's married to our interim minister, the Reverend Michelle LaGrave. Micah leads worship today with assistance from me, our music director, Julia Marsher, and our director of religious education, Katie Cartman, with tech support live in the sanctuary from Emersonians, Dory Wolf and Jill Rose. Dory and Jill, thank you so much. And now our prelude. We're starting off the service today with a little jazz. Performing Three Little Words is the Emmett Cohen Trio, featuring New York's rising jazz artist, Samara Joy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael LaGrave, this morning's guest preacher. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on your life's journey, no matter your age or your pronouns, no matter whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whatever your marginalized or privileged identities you hold, whether you hear for the first time, the 5th, or the 500th, whether English is your first language or your second or your third or more, whether you are a citizen or not, or hope to be one day, whomever you love, you, whoever you are welcome here. We affirm that every one of us is held in creation's hand, a part of the interdependent cosmic web, and hence strangers need not be enemies, that no one is saved until we all are saved, where all means that whole of creation.
Every day, or every Sunday, thousands of Unitarians and Universalists around the country, around the globe, gather and light a chalice, the symbol of our common faith. Our words today are from Betsy Dar. I invite you to join with me. May the light of this chalice give light and warmth to our community when we are joyful and when we despair. And may we feel the warmth spread from our circle to wider and wider circles until all know they belong to the one circle of life. And our opening hymn today is Building Bridges.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all our divisions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Our story today is The Capybaras. It was written originally in Spanish and has been translated to several languages. So if you're trying to keep up with me at home, you might notice that the words are changing language on you from time to time. That was a safe, agreeable place. Life was comfortable and everyone knew what she was supposed to do. There was plenty of food and nothing out of the ordinary ever happened. And then, one day, the capybaras came. No one knew them. No one expected them. They were so big and hairy and brown, and there were so many of them. There was no place for the capybaras. And yet, the capybaras couldn't go home because hunting season had begun. What would happen? The capybaras were up on the shore. They needed some place. Well, the chickens thought. To be allowed to stay, the capybaras would have to accept some rules. Don't make any noise. Don't come out of the water. Don't come near the food. And don't question the rules. What do we see here? A baby capybara, possibly even cuter than a full-grown capybara, and a baby chick. Like young ones everywhere, what are they? They're curious. They kind of want to sniff each other out, see what's going on. What is going on? And as the capybara goes into the water, well, a chick, being what a chick is, wants to keep exploring and hops on the capybara's back. Peep, 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 peep. Interestingly, in different languages, chicks say different things. Going for a little swim, and then, uh-oh, one of the grown-ups looks up. The rules were for everyone. No one had permission to go near the capybaras. They were wild animals. But that little chick, always exploring, and look, a hole in the fence, but then, woof, a big dog. That little chick runs off again, finds the capybara friend, and the wolf. The dog is still coming. Dog is still coming. Well, of course, the chick and the capybara head to safety. Just as an adult, chicken is explaining how the capybaras might be dangerous. The chick is being protected by the whole capybara colony. In that moment, everything changed. The days changed, and so did the nights. Hunting season ended. The capybaras expressed their gratitude for being given refuge, and they got ready to leave. That year's hunt hadn't gone so well. The hunters returned empty-handed. The chicken coop was empty too. No one ever knew what had happened. Maybe we know what happened. And maybe, as the end page shows us, even more happens as that unlikely pairing of the capybaras and the chickens head downstream and share their message. The end.
Giving out of what of our own is a transformative act. As a community of faith, we collect an offering, not for ourselves or our congregation, but to give to others as a collective action of our community and as a way to live out our shared values. Please give with a generous heart to support the February Share the Plate recipient, Houston Food Bank. 1 in 6 people in our region is food insecure, not knowing day to day if there's enough to eat. Let's share what we have with the Houston Food Bank this month. The Houston Food Bank is a 501c3 organization feeding over 1 million people across Southeast Texas. Each dollar you give becomes 3 meals of food. Learn more at houstonfoodbank.org. And as always, 25% of our offering will go to Interfaith Ministries Meals on Wheels, feeding Houston seniors. We have 3 ways to give. You can text the number on the screen, go to our webpage for online giving, or if you prefer to mail a check, we're still picking up the mail at church. Folks in the sanctuary, feel free to drop your offering in the baskets at any point during today's service.
Please find a comfortable seat and ground yourself. If you can, and if you will, close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. Take a deep breath in and join me in a spirit of meditation, followed by a time of silence. Take a journey with me. Imagine you are around a huge picnic table where many different people are gathered, engaged in lively conversation. There's warmth from the sun as a cool breeze touches your face. There are foods from many different cultures on the table. In the background is the gentle sound of a guitar playing comforting music as you sit around the table, sharing the stories of your life. There's no need to rush, as you have all the time in the world to just be present to the moment. You look around, seeing the diversity of those gathered around the picnic table. There are people of different political beliefs, physical and mental abilities, different faith beliefs, different cultures, people from around the globe, all talking together in a circle of embrace, connection, and understanding. Laughter, singing, humor, companionship, the sweet sound of silence, joy. You are feeling at peace, at one with each and every person around the table. You feel accepted, valued, heard. You're actively listening as you share your stories, your hopes, your dreams. You feel connected. You feel the sense of community and love. You realize that this is how it was meant to be. In this knowing, you are aware of your own breath and the aliveness that you feel as the evening turns into morning. The sun is coming into view over the horizon as the sky begins to turn to oranges and reds. There isn't a cloud in the sky. The food has dwindled, yet there is still warmth emanating from each person gathered around the table. Birds sing, welcoming the morning. There's a stillness in the air as the world begins to wake up for another day of mindful activity. You realize that, although you've been gathered around the table all night, it seems but just a few minutes, and you do not want this feeling to end, and it does not have to end for you. You can carry this feeling with you as you close your eyes in the days, weeks, and months ahead, and remember this feeling of interconnectedness. Remember the truth of who you are as a being at one with each and every other being on this great planet of ours. Your journey ends in a warm embrace, an embrace of welcome and a love which surpasses all understanding. And you are accepted and you are home. And so it is, and so we let us be. Amen.
The delicate Flapping wings of a butterfly have the power to set molecules of air in motion, in turn moving more molecules of air, a tiny act that is eventually capable of affecting weather patterns on the other side of the planet. This notion comes from a concept within chaos theory called the butterfly effect. Simply, the butterfly effect refers to a phenomenon in our world in which a small change in one place can result in equal or greater changes elsewhere. This may seem crazy, a tiny butterfly changing global weather patterns. Not only is the butterfly effect a real scientific theory, but it's also an intriguing philosophical idea. I say all this because the butterfly effect affects the way I live my life and the decisions that I make in a way that no ideas about God ever have. I'm no meteorologist, nor am I well versed in entomology, but ever since learning about the butterfly effect, I have been attracted to it because it demonstrates an important principle that is often forgotten. Namely, each of our actions has effects that are more profound than we think. Interconnection is a major theme found in nearly all of the world's religious and philosophical traditions. The interconnectedness of our universe is also one of the most significant revelations of physics. All components of matter are interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote our responsibility to remain aware of interconnection through our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence. Attention to interconnectivity reminds me, despite the many socio-political forces that work to divide us from one another, that I am never alone in this world. It reminds me that each decision or action I make has reactions, and that those reactions reverberate as waves moving back and forth across our globe. This compels me to live a life aware of the consequences of my daily actions, from the purchases I make to personal interactions with others. I certainly do not always succeed, but I try. My awareness of interconnectivity and efforts to work against the illusion of division remain my most significant spiritual practice. This spiritual practice also gives me the ability to stand in awe of interconnection, in awe of the butterfly effect and the power that comes with it. On rare occasions, I am reminded to stop and appreciate the divinity of interconnectivity revealed before my very eyes. This, to me, is awe-inspiring. This, to me, is divine.
In Unitarian Universalism, there are 7 core principles which unite congregations around the globe. And these core principles, which guide the way that people are to relate to each other and to the world. The 7th principle reads, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we all are a part. The first principle upholds the inherent worth and dignity of each and every being. How, in this divisive environment, are we to live these principles? What does it mean to embrace the inherent worth and dignity of every being when emotions run high and there seems to be no way to meet in the middle? We are indeed a divided nation, and at times it feels so discouraging and overwhelming that we do not know what to do. Even when we are around like-minded people, there's often disagreement about how to bring about the change we seek. I think back to the 60s, when there was tension between the work of Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and the Black Panthers. These movements were on the same side of history. They each sought to bring about social change through racial and economic justice. However, their methods were very different. Who was right? I once heard the great statesperson Andrew Young say, when asked about the Black Panthers, "Someone had to kick down the door so that I could walk through." In this, he was saying that each movement was necessary to bring about social change. Yet, even as great as the changes that were brought about the civil rights movement were, they were not enough. These changes took place within a system that was based on a belief in separation and lack. It is a system that is very much alive today. In order for true equity to come about, we need to raise our consciousness as a society to new ways of thinking about the way we relate to each other. We need to move beyond a dualistic system and embrace one which celebrates the unique gifts of each and every being and what they bring to the table. The current consciousness that we have is not working. We have created a mess that needs fixing, and it is up to each one of us to come up with a solution, to be a part of it. In his book, Creating a World That Works for All, Sharif Abdullah suggests 3 different types of belief systems that define the way that people throughout history have lived. There are the keepers, the breakers, and the menders. He defines keepers as indigenous people who live their lives inextricably connected to the local ecology. Their fundamental operating belief is, we are one. Keepers behave as though they are part of the earth. For them, no one group or species is more important than any other. Breakers are people whose fundamental operating belief is, I am separate, and whose operating assumption is, there is not enough. The breaker's story is creating a world that works for me. Breakers treat the earth as their own property, as if it's a life support system for them to use as they please. They seek ever greater control over all aspects of life on earth, while behaving as though they were exempt from the laws of nature. Menders are people whose fundamental belief is, we are one, and whose operating assumption is, there is enough for all. Menders seek to restore the balance with the earth and consciously live their lives as an integral part of living on this sacred planet. They seek ways to bring healing to themselves and the earth. While keepers can be traced back in history, and menders are the hope for the future, for Abdullah, we are currently operating out of a breaker consciousness, which has gotten us into the mess that we are currently in. He passionately lays out how we got into this mess and how we can become a mender society by raising our consciousness to an awareness that there is no lack or separation between us and all of creation. The truth is that we are all breakers. We have been socialized in a dualistic system which nurtures beliefs in rugged individualism and celebrates the achievements of humankind over the interests of the rest of creation. The other truth is that we all have the capacity to become menders. While many of us reject many of the tendencies of breaker consciousness, we are nonetheless living in a system that promotes this breaker consciousness. What is necessary to move from breaker behavior to mender behavior is a consciousness of our interconnectedness. Each day, we must examine our behavior against the yardstick of how what we are doing is contributing to the benefit of all. We must examine our core beliefs which shape our behavior. Where are our beliefs and behaviors contributing to this belief in separation? Where are we embracing a belief in lack? We live in a dualistic society where things are defined as good or bad, Democrat or Republican, have or have not, illegal or citizen, male or female, educated or uneducated, blue collar or white collar, believer or unbeliever, racist or anti-racist, gay or straight, able-bodied or disabled, and the many other ways that we see this dualism that is so harmful for creating a world that works for all. Sometimes we are not even aware of how this dualistic thinking is at work in our lives because it is such an embedded part of who we are, ingrained in us since we were children. We come by this dualism honestly. However, this does not absolve us of the responsibility to become aware of it and consciously work to change how we fundamentally are in the world. We must become menders if we are to change that which we want is to be the change of what we want to see in the world. The multitude of problems that we face in this world stem from two sources: the belief in separation and the belief in lack. If we are to move beyond dualism, we must realize and be transformed by the understanding that we are all one. Abdullah lists 49 of the many problems which face our human race, and they include political and social alienation, extinction of species, suicide, the status of the environment, isms of all sorts, political corruption, militarization of space, economic and class disparities, war, overconsumption, and the list goes on. These are not separate elements, but are symptoms of a single condition, and that is the mess that we are in. All of these symptoms are interconnected. When we focus on one or two, others get exacerbated. We need to move beyond single issue justice to seeing the system as a whole and understand that it needs to change in order for us to come fully into who we have been created to be. We need to move beyond Democrat or Republican, Trump supporter or Biden supporter, racist or anti-racist, or whatever else divides us, so that we can see to our common humanity. For when we do, walls break down. We need to work hard to understand where others are coming from, moving beyond the either or into the gray area of the both and that sees the perspective of the other. When we say that all voices are welcome to the table, we must truly mean that all voices are welcome, regardless of if we disagree with them or not. There are many sides to the issues we face. People have different life experiences, thus come at things differently. We need to listen to all voices if we are to truly move beyond separation to oneness. On page 144 of her book, Dare to Lead, Brene Brown says this: again, it's only diverse perspectives are included, respected, and valued that we can start to get the full picture of the world, who we serve, what they need, and how to successfully meet people where they are. Thus, we need to move beyond categories and labels that we have created in order to see through this illusion of separation. The other illusion is the illusion that there is lack in this world. There's ample supply for the needs we have. We do not have a supply problem, we have a distribution problem. We have a will problem that is getting in the way of us being able to truly solve the mess that we are in. We have not yet tapped into our imagination, which sees a system which works for all beings. What would it mean to move beyond an economic system which rewards those who exploit others for their own benefit? What would it mean to live in a world that sees each being as valuable and worthy just because of who they are, as expressions of the force of energy that is the source of all life? What would it look like to live in a world which works for all? In 1957, Ate Ariyate, a high school teacher in Sri Lanka, took groups of high school students to poor villages in Sri Lanka to donate their labor. This was the beginning of the Sarvodaya Shamadana movement. Today, it is thriving as a large self-help development movement based on the Buddhist and Gandhian principles. They have orphanages for battered children, work on rural water and solar energy projects, provide legal services, promote women's projects and economic development, have a Grame-style micro-lending banks, and so much more. In 1997, Abdullah went to Sri Lanka and experienced something of what a world that works for all looks like. There were people from all around the world who came to donate their time and resources at work at the Sarvodaya Shamadana. The goal is comprehensive nonviolent social transformation in the Mahatma Gandhi tradition. Part of the movement at Sarvodaya is a Sarvodaya canteen. Here, lunch is the biggest meal of the day. This noontime meal is unusual in the following ways. Foreigners are set at a table served with fine china on family-style platters filled with more than enough to satisfy those who are eating. Sri Lankans, on the other hand, eat from wide, shallow bowls made from metal. They line up at the kitchen door and receive a large portion of food to be eaten at other tables. Should they desire more, they are free to return to the kitchen. To those of us who have done any diversity training, this might seem discriminatory. Why doesn't everyone receive their food in the same way? In order to understand, we must understand the Sri Lankan culture. It is Sri Lankan culture to offer abundant food and hospitality to guests. What is important is that the system works for Sri Lankans. For all who eat at the canteen, there is enough. No one walks away hungry, and the Sri Lankan culture is honored. This works for all because it follows 3 hallmark principles of creating a world that works for all, according to Abdullah. The first principle is enoughness. Everyone has enough, even though resources are not shared equally. The second principle is exchangeability. Trading places would be okay. In other words, would you be willing to trade places with another person? For example, in our culture, would you be willing to change places with a person working a minimum wage job and struggling to meet ends meet? Would you be willing to change places with someone living in a low-income neighborhood with rundown housing? If the answer is no, then the principles of enoughness and exchangeability are not working. The third principle is common benefit. The system is designed and intended to benefit all. If all 3 criteria are met, then we have a world that works for all. In these 3 principles, Abdullah is giving us something to work for rather than against. There is so much energy spent on working against that we stifle our creative imagination to work for and towards a world that works for all. What would it mean to work for rather than against? When justice is on our side, there is no stopping the train. However, we must remain centered and focused on what we passionately believe in. To act from a place where we are against something gives energy to a fight that is not helpful. It only furthers the divide because we are not offering another solution or another way to address the core issues. In order for people who act for, we must be rooted in our spiritual practices, caring for our mind, body, and spirit each and every day. Caring for ourselves is not a selfish act, rather it is a gift that we give the world. Think of it this way, using an analogy for taking a plane trip. When a flight attendant goes through the safety protocol at the beginning of the flight, he, she, they tell those on the plane about the oxygen mask. Each time they remind us to put our oxygen mask on first before helping others. We cannot be of use to ourselves if we are passed out. So it is with our lives. When we are tired, our spirits are depleted, and our tanks are empty, we cannot be effective in our efforts to make a difference. We cannot be a part of the butterfly effect that changes the world. In order to be intentional, we must open our hearts wide to all beings, seeing them as people just like us. Each person in this world is living the best life that they know how to live. Maya Angelou said, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." Sometimes people just do not know better. Sometimes we do not know better. We must assume that everyone we meet is doing the best they can with what they know, and we must assume the same of ourselves. We do not always know the right course of action to take, but we can treat others, even those who are not like ourselves, with love, respect, and compassion. The truth is, we are one, united by a common creative energy. There is no separation. It is only in our limited human perspective that we see an us versus them. We need to move beyond this sort of consciousness. In her book, Kitchen Table Wisdom, Rachel Naomi Remen starts her essay entitled The Wood of No Names in this way. Just before she meets Tweedledum and Tweedledee, Alice enters the wood of no names, encounters a fawn. Neither the fawn nor Alice can remember their names. No matter, they walk a ways together. Alice with her arms clasped around lovingly the neck of the fawn until they come to the edge of the wood. Once there, the fawn suddenly remembers its name and looks at Alice with horror. I'm a fawn, it cries out, and dear me, you are a human child. Terrified, it runs away. How are you behaving like the fawn? Who are the people around you that you fear? Each of us fits into a category that in one way or another has been marginalized. It is not the people who seem to believe so differently from us do not care about the things we care about. They just do so from a different perspective. We are so busy trying to get our points across that we often do not hear the heart of another. We do not hear their needs. We live in a broken society that makes it nearly impossible to live out true justice and equity. What we need to do, Abdullah argues, is to imagine a society that breaks free from the status quo. He says that we need to move beyond labels in order to see each person as worthy of our love. When we wake up and realize we are a fawn, we need to lean into the fear of the other long enough to embrace that and understand that we are not so different, so that we can walk side by side in harmony. I believe that we are all created in the image and likeness of the divine spirit. Therefore, each one of us contains the very DNA of divine energy. Put another way, each of us has a spark of the divine within. We each have the capacity to open our hearts to see the face of those around us. When we do not know what to do, we need to ask ourselves, how can I see the divine spark in the face of the other? To the extent that we are able to do this, then we are acting from a place of true compassion and loving kindness. For to see the divine spark in the other is to truly open ourselves up to authentic connection. It is to be vulnerable in ways that transform us from the inside out. To create a world that works for all, we must examine our own biases and the ways we categorize people. We must look into the eyes of the others that we see around us and see them as precious siblings who have wants, needs, and desires. We must take the time to ask questions, be curious, look at the world with wonder, and imagine together what a world that works for them might look like. There's a lot of pain in this country of ours. We must not be afraid to look at that pain. We need to embrace it rather than resist it. For it is only in the embracing of the pain of others that we can see the pain in ourselves. We need to heal this pain in order to be made whole. Breaking down the barriers that divide is the only way that we are going to get out of this mess. We need to take our power back and define for ourselves what we are going to embrace and work for, rather than what we're going to fight against. It is as we do this that our creativity and imagination flow, and we are able to make true, lasting change. What is your dream? What are you going to work for? How are you going to be a mender that transforms the social order and creates a world that works for all? And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen. And our closing hymn this morning is number 323, Break Not the Circle.
comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong or guilt, but will that human bond remain unbroken. Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
Filled by the love in this community, go forth out into the world, shining your light brightly as you discover what you are for. Live your dreams fearlessly, embracing who you are as a divine spark. Be the bridge that creates a mender society. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
Don't forget, like I sometimes do, to extinguish your chalice. Just a couple quick announcements before we get to social time. First of all, there will be a Q&A on the Zoom where all of your questions about our ministerial search process can be answered. That's at February 17th. There'll be much more information in the e-blast. Also, there will be a greeter usher training after service on February 20th. So if you ever wondered if you could be one of those folks at the front door giving that first smile to people coming in our doors, or you'd like to help with setting up the sanctuary and taking the offering and all those sorts of things, that's your chance, February 20th. There are many more announcements in the e-blast, and we're going to see you in the breakout rooms in just a few minutes after the postlude. If you're on site, well, you're going to figure out where you're going to talk, or if you're going to pull up your phone so that you can get on a Zoom and join us there. Our postlude today is a simple yet moving song by the activist duo Emma's Revolution, comprised of Sandy Okotau and Pat Humphreys, titled Peace, Salam, Shalom. See you soon.